And so this will be the first introductory meeting of the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee for 2022. This is a incredibly important committee. I think as the world is changing around us, it is important as a Jain community that we begin to open up certain conversations and how it relates to animal ethics, our relationship with the environment, as well as public health. And so I think in today's meeting, we're going to be going into take a deeper dive into the purpose of our committee, why we even exist, and what we can do to better both the Jain community as well as spread awareness and education to the world. So to kick things off, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Dr. Jaina, who's going to share a few words about, about the committee, why we exist, and then she'll pass the mic back to me, and we'll go through a short agenda regarding our vision, goals, and strategies. So Jaina, please feel free to take it from here.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So as you all know, Sunny was instrumental in starting the Global Jain Network and the Jain Vegan Initiative in 2021, right? And so this is to join the activities historically that have been done by the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee to the newer initiatives and pass on the leadership, as I have reached my term limit as the chair of the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. And it's really exciting to have all of this new energy. And I want people not to be bored when I'm doing a presentation and to please jump in, because the intention is not to go on and on about the past. It's just to give you enough of a framework so you know where we've come from to set the stage for your own brainstorming and ideas so that we can set a good future direction. So with that, I'll give you a little bit of the history of Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee, as far as my involvement goes, and a little bit about Vegan Jains as the website, as a way to transition over to the new group. And I can stay on, of course, and I know some of us here have been involved in the past, but that's the focus is on the future. But let's begin by understanding where we've come from. So I do have some slides, and I'll try not to dwell too much on some of them so that we leave enough time. So let me go ahead and share screen and start that slideshow. So, okay, so here's the screen, and then all right, can you guys see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So ignore the dates. These are slides taken from previous slide sets for various reasons that are being repurposed so that we can understand some history as a way to set the stage for our transition. So as many of us know, but not everyone, JAINA is the umbrella organization of the Jain organizations in North America. And the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee is a committee within JAINA. So its mission is to promote the Jain Dharma, the Jain way of life. It's the largest organization of Jains outside India. The spiritual advisors, Sushil Muniji and Gurudev Chitrabhanu, were instrumental in helping start JAINA. It was founded in 1981. There are 72 plus Jain centers, about 150,000 members, and 32 committees. So that's JAINA. And then in terms of my vegan journey, I became vegan in 1990 after visiting Siddhachalam. And I was a member of YJP. YJP had just started when I was in my early 20s, so I wasn't really part of the leadership. And I did join YJP as well. So all of these organizations were sort of being formed as I was also going through college and med school and everything else. Now, I just want to say that veganism didn't start with the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. JAINA didn't only start to take notice of veganism with the committee. And, the song, Billy Joel song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," it kind of just points to they had what was labeled vegan food way back when, in at least as far back as 97. Manish Mehta, you can tell us if it's even further back than that. I mean, I think when I attended the first convention in the campus of Stanford, I think there were also vegan options. So there have been vegan options. There's been an awareness for a very long time. And in way back in the past, the Jivdya Committee actually embraced veganism also. Narendra Sheth was the chair of the Jivdya Committee, and he facilitated a lot of young people to produce a handbook on Jivdya and veganism and a Jain vegan pyramid. They had a lot of articles. And And then as things changed, that committee became maybe less oriented towards veganism, more thinking about animal protection in a traditional sense, supporting Banjapurs, and things evolved. This last picture is our last in-person convention in 2019. And some of the people on this call were there. And it represents kind of the way that we operated prior to the pandemic, which was largely organizing talks for the in-person conventions, advocating for programming and meals for the in-person conventions. And then, of course, things changed. Just before I tell you more about how things changed, I want to bring you back to 2013 when we first proposed the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. So my co-chair was Sanjay Jain, who had started the Eco-Vegan Project in Boston. He had been working with a group of parents of Bachelor students, and they all researched veganism, put together presentations that they then took to booths at various JAINA conventions. That was the birth of the project, which eventually became the committee. And as you look at this, it's a few slides, think about how this relates to what Sunny is going to tell you, what you already know about the activities of the Global Jain Network and the Jain Vegan Initiative. So back then, we connected the essence of Jainism, the principles of Ahimsa, Anikantvad, and Aparigraha, and our aphorism from Tattvartha Sutra, Parasparopagraho Jivanam. We connected that to the goals of the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. And so the importance of having Ahimsak in our title was also to counter this notion that many older Jains had developed, that veganism and environmentalism were being proposed as something that was new or outside of Jainism. So we wanted to emphasize that these are fundamental values, these are expressions of our fundamental values of Ahimsa, that violence to Panchindriya is most important to us in our hierarchy if violence has to exist, and it's the rationale for vegetarianism and veganism, and that Parasparopagraho Jivanam demonstrates our understanding of the interdependence of all life. I think it's time to hand it over to Sunny to hear more about the vision going forward. I'll stop here. If there's any questions, we can discuss them in the discussion portion later.
So we're going to go ahead and begin by thanking all of you again for kind of hanging around. We're going to go through some information regarding our vision, goals, and strategies. And so I'm going to try to hurry it up a little bit quickly so we can have a brainstorming session as well. So in today's session, we're going to start by introducing the team. We're going to follow that up with our vision and philosophy. And then we're going to discuss the Jain Vegan Initiative, which is something that we launched as part of our committee in 2021. Then we're going to discuss our strategy for this year. That's going to be followed by Q&A and brainstorming. And then finally, if we get time, which most likely we won't, but we're going to discuss what activism even means and how do we get involved in activism as part of our committee. And then finally, resources and next steps. So just to start off, I'm going to share a little bit about myself very quickly. In my personal life, I currently work as an analyst at Goldman Sachs here in Salt Lake City. I have been a lifetime member of the Jain Society of Houston. So that was pretty much where I was born and raised, lived there for most of my life. And I've been vegan for about 5 years now. And I became vegan for the animals, but after learning about the environmental impact as well as the personal health benefits, it kind of just solidified my purpose for being vegan. Within the JAINA ecosystem, I've been involved in some capacity in the leadership level, starting with YJA in 2017 as a local representative. And then that was followed by being on the YJP executive board as a public relations director in 2018. So essentially in charge of the social media, digital marketing strategies, and then became a co-chair for YJP in 2019. And then finally, being a part of the JAINA Eco-Vegan Committee as we have our event today. The Global Jain Network is another organization that I've been heavily involved with. It is, currently the largest Jain community on Clubhouse, and we've reached over 13,000 Jains in just 6 months. So it's been incredible being a part of so many different spaces that are connecting and bringing Jains together. In addition to myself, I do want to introduce, Dr. Gina that was speaking earlier, as well as Nisha, Pratik, and Sudhanshu Jain. And this is currently our leadership team for 2022. As you can see, we have a lot of opportunity for leadership positions, and we'll share a little bit more information on how you can get involved if you have interest in being a part of our leadership team. And so let's go ahead and start with our vision and philosophy. Gina has kind of went over it, but I have more I want to add to this. So why does this matter? And so when we talk about the Jain Vegan Initiative, this is a global collective of like-minded Jains with the mission to push the needle towards veganism in the global Jain community. That is our goal. We want to push the needle towards veganism. We have a lot of factors that are, against us right now, right? We have a social structure that exists, which consumes a lot of animal products, a lot of dairy. And our goal is to begin by providing education about how our food systems are tied to the mass exploitation of animals, our planet, and our health. And we believe that the collective shift towards veganism is the single biggest and most important moment in contemporary Jain culture. On the right side, you'll see that there's a few events that we have hosted in the past. Gina kind of went over a few, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but whenever we find an opportunity to talk about different topics, we'll take that opportunity. So why do we exist? In the 21st century, we believe that there's a severe disconnect between Jain principles and modern day practice. I think, while this sounds a little bit direct, we have to be very honest that, in 2022, there are many Jains that wear leather. They consume dairy products such as milk, ghee, and butter. We use silk, oftentimes in our puja events. We use leather products or use items that contain animal products. We also consume honey. There's such a big disconnect, and we want to begin by educating our Jain community because we believe that this can help improve our community. We can improve the way we treat animals and the environment. And this committee is really the sole committee within JAINA that can accomplish this goal. So I think it's very important that we do exist. And, essentially the social acceptance of the use and exploitation of 5 cents animals in the Jain community is in complete contrast to the Jain principles due to the violence inflicted on animals involved. As Jainism prescribes that we should minimize suffering that we cause to all beings as much as we can. And we believe that as the Jain community receives new information, we should be able to adapt to it. If we find out that there's so much cruelty happening in the dairy industry, as a Jain community, we should be able to adapt to make changes to our tradition so that we are aligned with modern conversations that are happening around the world. So why focus on the Jain community, right? So there's a few benefits to our specific social structure strategy. First, we're having focused activism. As we're coming from the Jain community, we can speak to the Jain people that, in a way that others cannot, right? We understand Jain Dharma. We understand certain conversations that matter to Jains, right? And because of this, our activism is tailored and specific to the Jain community, which I think is an advantage. In addition to that, we have to notice that there's a higher adoption of veganism consistent with JAINA Ahimsa. As we begin to share information about what is happening to mother cows, what is happening to baby cows in the dairy industry, and all the different types of cruelties happening within the dairy industry, we're able to convince Jains in a way that others aren't able to. So kind of align with the first topic. Another benefit of focusing in the Jain community is we have an existing social structure, right? So we have, for example, we have Jain derasars, right, in major cities around the world. We have pachala systems where Sunday school teachers will share Jain Dharma with their kids. We have monks, sadhu, sadhis. We have a Jaina ecosystem, right? We have Jain leadership. We have an executive board. And so having an existing social structure can help us in developing a strategy that makes sense, that we can actually make change. Finally, targeted community and derasar outreach, which kind of goes with the previous point, that there's an existing social structure. So we know what we need to do, right? And so now we need to figure out the best way to deliver the message and to deliver this communication. Finally, we have religious events. We have Mahavarjanti, we have Pajushan. We have various religious events throughout the year within Jainism. And these are great opportunities for us to spread awareness, to share, hey, we can go, it may be a great opportunity to try vegan for these various reasons. And so what differentiates us? So when I say differentiates us, I'm talking about the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee in terms of our organization and our strategy. So I think the first thing that is a huge advantage is we have the 100% backing of JAINA, the umbrella organization, as well as the Global Jain Network. What that means is we have been entrusted with this task to educate our Jain community. When it comes to resistance and pushback, because we are part of the JAINA ecostructure, we will be able to overcome many hurdles because of this. I think this is a huge benefit for us. We have established marketing communication channels. So I'll share a little bit further down the road on what marketing communication channels exist. But when it comes to social media, when it comes to email communications, when it comes to various connections that we have in the Jain community, this will be a huge benefit for our group reaching our audience. And that is what is marketing communication channels. Finally, we have a high proficiency in social media management and digital marketing. I definitely consider us ahead of our time when it comes to developing original social media content and just content in general that allows us to reach Jains in a different way that has never been done before. And then finally, ability to leverage new technologies. I think the pandemic has opened up a lot of new opportunities. I used to joke with my friends that maybe 3 years ago, no one knew what Zoom was. And today we have the ability to reach Jains around the world, let alone this country, in a seamless way and deliver information. And so I think our ability to constantly adapt and leverage new technologies will come to our advantage as well. Finally, we have a global reach. So we have the ability to reach Jains in countries around the world. And this is going to be kind of aligned with the ability to have global events and meetings to reach other people. So is our food destroying the planet? I think, Dr. Gina eloquently shared information about animal agriculture and environment. So I'm going to just quickly go over these steps because I think this is a connection that a lot of people don't know. Often we'll hear that, okay, veganism is great, but let's talk about recycling, right? Let's talk about minimizing our plastic usage. That's what's going to help the planet, right? And so let's be really, really honest, right, about what animal agriculture is really doing to our environment. And once we're honest and transparent with this information, then we can make a proper discussion about what is really best for the environment, right? And so when we talk about animal agriculture and the environment, we talk about carbon and nitrous oxide emissions. We talk about deforestation. We talk about water usage of our food. We talk about pollution. This could be in the terms of wastage, like water wastage, as well as the damaging of the land. We talk about resource misallocation. We talk about the economic inputs that goes into this industry versus what is actually coming out. That there's so many people starving in this world, right? There's so many food security issues, yet we are feeding so many animals just to produce milk, right? And so let's have an honest conversation about that. And let's have an honest conversation about food insecurities. And so, just quickly, this is an image of the Amazon rainforest, right? That is on fire. Many of you may remember in 2018, it was on all the headlines that our forest is on fire, our forest is on fire. But we didn't really discuss why it's on fire. And the reality is this forest was on fire because it was the clearing of land for beef and dairy. That's the truth, right? So in Brazil, they wanted to expand land so that they can grow more cows for beef and dairy. And to expand the land, they had to set certain parts of the forest on fire. And so when we say beef is interlinked with dairy, so it affects both. An Oxford University study that came out, I think in 2019, said that going vegan is the single biggest way to reduce our environmental impact on Earth. So once again, it is very much interlinked, the environment and our food. This is just a quick graph that shows pretty much the various different perspectives, the carbon emissions, land use, and the water use of dairy milk versus other alternatives, right? And so over here we have rice milk, soy milk, oat milk, and almond milk. But we know there's actually many more milks. There's actually 24 different vegan milks that exist in the market today. And in all the comparisons, you can see that dairy milk versus all the other milks is such a big difference. Even when we talk about water usage, right? When we talk about almond milk versus dairy milk, while almond milk is substantial compared to the other milks, if you look at dairy, you're taking almost another quarter worth of impact when you drink dairy milk versus almond milk. So once again, this is kind of the reality of the milk that we're drinking and what it's doing to the environment. Finally, this is just a very shocking kind of picture that one glass of milk is equivalent to 30 gallons of water. So, I mean, just imagine when we think about like the droughts that are happening in the world that we're talking about, hey, we should shower less so we can save more water. One glass of dairy milk is equivalent to 30 gallons of milk. And if you take it a step further, you'll see right here that one stick of butter is 109 gallons of water. Once again, if you don't believe these random images, I highly recommend you to do research yourself, do your due diligence, and you can see how directly impacted our food is with the environment in these various ways. Once again, I think Gina had shared this already, so I'm gonna kind of keep going. So let's talk about the Jain Vegan Initiative now. What is that, right? And so in an attempt to re-spark our movement in 2021, the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee launched the Jain Vegan Initiative. This is a collaborative effort between our committee and various other Jain organizations around the world, where we're trying to start the conversation about veganism again, and talk about how we can go vegan in 2021 and now 2022. So when did we launch it? We launched this on September 1st, 2021, just a few days before Pajushan. And once again, with the sudden shift to the virtual world, we realized that there's a unique opportunity to leverage new technologies and platforms such as Zoom and Clubhouse to mobilize and energize the vegan committee. On the left side, you'll see that there's a few posts that we've had, which are often common questions, right? I don't want to give up chai, right? So how do we go vegan and still drink chai? We talk about what is better, quote unquote, right? So I follow a Jain diet, so why should I even care about a vegan diet? Why do Jains even talk about animals? Like, should Jains even protect animals, right? I mean, if you talk about the newer generation, these are stories that are lost, the stories of our Tirthankars, and how every Tirthankar has a different story on how they're willing to, give up their lives for the life of even a small pigeon, or walking away from a marriage so that they can release the animals that were captured there. I mean, we talk about Marva Swami, who's an animal rights icon. I mean, there's so much there and so many reasons why Jains should care about animals in line with our Jain tradition. The Jain Vegan Initiative team, which is, a global, pretty much a collaborative project, has various different people, which of course you may notice some familiar faces. You might see some new faces, but these are Jains around the world. We have Jains in India, we have Jains in the United States, we have Jains in Canada. So this is more of a collaborative project, which is being spearled by the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. So when you see the Jain Vegan Initiative, know that we are the same. This is a group of people that are rooting for us, that they want us to succeed as a committee, and they are going to do everything they can to help us succeed. And just quickly sharing that, from 7 different cities, we have physicians, we have parents, we have food bloggers, we have entrepreneurs, we have JAINA committee members within the JVI team as well. And this is going to be essentially our sister team. So our 2022 strategy, this is really important. And so, I know we went through a lot of information, but I hope that you're able to, really focus on this particular mind map that we've created. And we're going to show exactly how we're going to plan to tackle, sharing education and awareness in 2022. So this is our mind map. Essentially what a mind map is, I know there's a lot here, but essentially a mind map is essentially a way to organize different information. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these blue bubbles and talk about different ways that we're going to spread awareness. This is going to show that this isn't just like a random acts of activism, that this is a very focused and structured way of reaching the Jain community in the most effective and the best way possible. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about our website. We have veganjains.com, which is under the management of the Ahimsak Eco-Vegan Committee. And essentially, this is a centralized resources for recipes, for vegan Jain resources, for articles, for blog posts, for news updates. So if there's anything that's related to our community, and when I say our community, I mean the Jain community in its intersectionality with veganism, it will be on this website. And so this is a very easy website for us to just refer people to the, hey, how do you drink vegan chai? Here's a link, right? It's easier than having to write like a 5-page paragraph on the different alternatives, right? If someone asks like, hey, what are more resources? What are some documentaries? You can just go on this website, you'll find it right away. And so this website is going to be an important part of our overall strategy for spreading vegan awareness into our Jain community. Second is going to be Clubhouse and Zoom. For those that aren't familiar with Clubhouse, this is an alternative platform similar to Zoom in which we're able to host virtual events. There's 2 types of events that we want to host. There's going to be panel-based events, which is we have like a panel of speakers. and they speak to an audience. So it's a little bit more of, you know, a roundtable conversation or perhaps a fireside chat. And then we also want to have support events. This is going to be open forum conversations where if you have a question, right, you have a genuine question like, what is veganism in its relation to Jainism? Why should I go vegan? You can come on stage and ask these questions, and we will be there to have an open forum conversation. Even if you're there to have a difficult conversation that, hey, veganism is great, but I believe that this is important as well. Let's have that conversation, right? This will be where these open conversations happen, because we need to have those difficult dialogues to really move, you know, certain hearts and minds to our cause. Different topics are going to include managed support, which is essentially asking questions and providing answers. We're going to have events related to the vegan transition. So on day one, how should you think about the transition versus 3 years from now, right? What has changed? We're going to talk about sustainability and the environment, right? We're going to talk about plant-based fitness, talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about cooking. What are some vegan Jain cooking recipes, right? Which is both vegan and Jain and also tastes wonderful, right? We're talking about veganism and Jain Durham. We're going to talk about Derasar outreach. How do you reach these local leaders of different Derasars and try to share this information with them that, hey, you should consider a zero waste policy, right? You should implement recycling. But in addition, you should also consider using non-dairy alternatives for your diyas. Instead of using ghee, why don't you use coconut oil, which works just as well? The diyas light just as long. And in this way, animals aren't hurt for it as well, right? Let's have these conversations as well. Finally, we'll have movie chats. So we'll talk about different documentaries shortly. Our third strategy, and so I apologize a lot, but we're going to do 3 out of 5. The third, this is also incredibly important. This is our social media, pages that exist on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. As we had mentioned earlier, we are very proficient when it comes to social media marketing and digital marketing. And this is really our way to reach Jains that we wouldn't normally reach otherwise, right? And so we are actively developing original content. We're spotlighting different Jain vegan bloggers. We're spotlighting different initiatives. We're hosting our event flyers on these pages as well. If someone says something in our room which we found very interesting or very insightful, we'll actually repost that as well on our pages as well. So social media is an incredibly important tool, and we're going to be able to reach certain demographics that our committee couldn't otherwise. So when it comes to like Gen Z, when it comes to millennials, when it comes to like some of the newer generations, we can reach them through social media. And this will also include email communication as well. Number 4 out of 5 is going to be our networking groups. So this is going to be on WhatsApp, this is going to be on Telegram, this is going to be Facebook networking groups. There's a certain demographic of Jains that do use these platforms heavily, and we want to reach them as well. So for those that are a part of our WhatsApp network, you may have noticed that we have over 70 WhatsApp groups that are currently within our robust WhatsApp network. These are WhatsApp groups of various different topics, both vegan and non-vegan. But this is really our way to have a greater handle of the narrative, to be able to exert certain influence on conversations, and essentially to make sure that we don't lose the side of veganism when we talk about animal rights and when we talk about the environment. And then finally, this is arguably the most important part of our strategy, and this is called vegan outreach. Essentially, this is another word for awareness, education awareness in a very direct way, right? And so when we talk about vegan outreach, we talk about creating flyers, right? We talk about going to the Derasar, hanging up a sign that, hey, did you know that the Jain Center of Southern California went vegan? We should consider going vegan too, right? This is physical events. Let's have like local dinners. Let's set up a booth during Maver Jayanti, right? Let's share some information there. Let's collaborate with the Jain youth groups. There's so many Jain youth groups. The Jain Society of North Texas youth group, they had a vegan chai event they do every Sunday, right? Or every 2 weeks. So let's like help them out. Let's provide funding for them. Let's try to support them as well, because that's the next generation, right? Ultimately, all these different bubbles are going to be part of an integrated strategy that we are spearheading for 2022. What that means is that there's a lot of opportunity for volunteering, for leadership. If there's a particular like bubble that like matters to you, you're like, hey, I'm very interested in being a speaker, right? For example, then let us know that, hey, I want to be a speaker. This is where I can add value and contribute to our movement, right? Let us know, and there's a lot of opportunity there. if you're like, hey, I'm a digital marketer, I'm good at graphic design, let us know, because we have an entire bubble, 2 bubbles where we can use your help and contribution right now. If you want to just be a ambassador, you want to just be someone that can answer questions when the time comes, you can be an ambassador for our networking groups, right? Just be an admin for our group. If someone asks a question, you can help out. If someone posts something that isn't allowed in the group, you can be a liaison and like having that conversation. And if you want to be a writer, right? If you're a doctor and you're more interested in writing, in being a school thought, writing thoughts of different conversations, you can write blog posts. We have a space for that as well. So wherever you are, whatever your personality is, we could use your help. And so with that being said, I just want to thank all of you again for listening. And I know it was a little bit long, but I just wanted to give all of you a chance to really learn about our strategy, what we're doing, and why we exist. And so once again, this is the easiest way to express your interest. We're going to write this in the chat, but you can send us an email. Gina's very, when it comes to email communication, she's very proficient. She'll get back to you right away. So you can just send an email to veganjains@gmail.com. And then ultimately, if you want to join our social media network and even just be up to date, we have a link called bit.ly/the Jain Vegan Initiative. And that is the easiest way to get connected with everything that we've mentioned so far.